Story 1. The Haunting of Maple Street. It was a stormy night when Emily moved into the old Victorian house on Maple Street. The rain drummed relentlessly on the roof, creating an unsettling backdrop to her uneasy first night. As she unpacked, she couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. Emily's restlessness grew as the storm intensified, each lightning flash illuminating the creaking, shadowy corners of the house. Around midnight, she heard it, a soft whispering coming from the attic. Despite the storm's roar, the whispers seemed distinct, as if someone was beckoning her. Driven by a mix of fear and curiosity, Emily climbed the creaky stairs to the attic. The attic was damp and filled with old furniture covered in dust. The whispers grew louder, echoing through the room. Emily's flashlight flickered, casting eerie shadows that danced on the walls. She found an old, dusty trunk in the corner. As she opened it, the whispers abruptly stopped, replaced by an unsettling silence. Inside the trunk were old photographs and a diary that belonged to a previous resident who had mysteriously disappeared decades ago. The rain continued to fall as Emily read the diary, discovering dark secrets about the house and its former inhabitants. The storm outside seemed to mirror the turmoil within the pages, and as the night wore on, the whispers returned, louder and more insistent. Emily knew she was not alone, and that the storm was far from over. Story 2. The Phantom of Blackwood Forest. In the heart of Blackwood Forest, a relentless downpour made the paths treacherous. Alex had been warned about the forest's eerie reputation, but he dismissed it as local superstition. Tonight, the forest was alive with the sound of rain and the whispers of the wind. As Alex ventured deeper into the forest, the trees seemed to close in around him. The rain created a constant, soothing rhythm, but it was punctuated by occasional, unsettling noises, snapshots of twigs breaking, distant, echoing footsteps. The deeper he went, the more oppressive the atmosphere became. He stumbled upon an old, abandoned cabin, its windows shattered and door hanging off its hinges. Seeking shelter, Alex entered the cabin. The interior was decrepit, with cobwebs and rotting furniture. As he settled in, the sound of the rain intensified, and the cabin seemed to groan under the storm's weight. Suddenly, Alex noticed something peculiar, a journal lying open on a table. Its pages were filled with frantic scrawls and drawings of strange figures. As he read, he learned about a man who had lived in the cabin many years ago and had been driven mad by the forest's supernatural forces. The journal detailed strange occurrences and sightings of ghostly figures in the rain. The storm outside worsened, and Alex began to feel as if he was not alone in the cabin. Shadows moved in the corners of his vision, and the sound of footsteps approached, only to disappear when he turned to look. The journal's final entries spoke of an entity that claimed the souls of those who dared to enter the forest during a storm. Alex's heart raced as he realized he might be next. Story 3. The Whispering Shadows. During a torrential downpour, Sarah stayed at her grandmother's old house, a place she hadn't visited in years. The house, with its creaky floors and antique furnishings, felt foreign yet familiar. The rain seemed to resonate with a deep, unsettling hum that filled the empty rooms. Sarah settled in for the night, but sleep eluded her as the storm raged outside. The sound of rain hitting the windows created a rhythmic lullaby that did little to ease her anxiety. She noticed that despite the storm, there were periods of eerie silence, moments when the rain seemed to stop altogether. As the night progressed, Sarah began to hear faint whispering sounds coming from the walls. They were too indistinct to understand, but persistent enough to unsettle her. She wandered through the house, trying to locate the source of the whispers. The sounds seemed to be leading her to the attic. In the attic, Sarah found an old mirror covered in a dusty sheet. When she uncovered it, the whispers grew louder, as if the mirror itself was the source of the sounds. The reflection showed not only her own image, but also the faint outlines of shadowy figures standing behind her. Terrified, Sarah backed away, but the figures in the mirror moved closer. The rain outside continued its relentless downpour, the only sound accompanying her growing fear. As she reached the stairs, the mirror's surface rippled, and the whispers turned into chilling laughter. The storm seemed to echo her terror, and the shadows in the mirror grew more menacing with each flash of lightning. Story 4. The Forgotten Asylum. The abandoned asylum on the outskirts of town was notorious for its grim history, and the relentless rain only added to its foreboding presence. Jack and his friends, curious and daring, decided to explore the asylum despite the storm. The old building loomed in the stormy night, its broken windows and rotting walls barely visible through the driving rain. Inside, the silence was oppressive, punctuated only by the sound of dripping water and the occasional rumble of thunder. The group's footsteps echoed ominously through the empty halls. As they ventured deeper, they discovered disturbing remnants of the asylum's past: rusty medical equipment, tattered patient records, and faded photographs. The rain seemed to intensify, and the temperature dropped abruptly. Jack heard a distant, mournful wail that grew louder as they moved. In the asylum's basement, they found an old locked door. Despite their fear, they pried it open and discovered a room with chains and restraints still attached to the walls. The wail grew into a cacophony of ghostly cries and whispers. The storm outside mirrored the chaos within as lightning illuminated shadowy figures in the corners of their vision. Terrified, the group fled the asylum, but the sounds of their escape were drowned out by the storm's fury. As they looked back, the asylum appeared to pulse with an eerie light, and the wails of the lost souls seemed to follow them into the night. Story 5. The Old Lighthouse Keeper. In the midst of a violent storm, a young man named Tom sought refuge in an old lighthouse he had stumbled upon while hiking. The rain lashed against the lighthouse's walls, and the wind howled like a banshee. Tom climbed the creaky stairs to the lighthouse's top, hoping to find shelter from the storm. The interior was dusty and filled with forgotten maritime relics. As he settled in, he noticed the lighthouse's beacon was still operational, its light cutting through the stormy night. Suddenly, Tom felt a chill and saw a figure in an old-fashioned uniform standing in the doorway. The figure was translucent, and its eyes were hollow. It seemed to be beckoning him to follow. Despite his fear, Tom followed the figure down to the basement. In the basement, he found old logs detailing the lighthouse keeper's tragic fate, lost at sea during a storm. The ghostly figure was that of the keeper, eternally bound to the lighthouse. As the rain intensified, Tom felt an overwhelming sadness and urgency, as if he was reliving the keeper's final moments. The ghost's mournful cries mixed with the storm's fury, creating a haunting symphony that stayed with Tom long after he left the lighthouse. Story 6. The Abandoned Cabin. During a torrential downpour, Sarah sought shelter in an old, abandoned cabin deep in the woods. The rain pounded relentlessly on the roof, creating a rhythm that was both soothing and unsettling. As Sarah explored the cabin, she discovered old furniture covered in dust and cobwebs. The air was musty, and the only sound was the rain drumming against the roof. She found an old rocking chair that seemed to move on its own, creaking softly with each gust of wind. The rain continued to fall, and the darkness outside was punctuated by occasional flashes of lightning. Sarah noticed strange symbols etched into the walls, and an old journal lying on a table. The journal detailed a series of bizarre occurrences and rituals performed by the cabin's previous occupant, who had vanished under mysterious circumstances. As Sarah read the journal, the rain grew heavier, and the cabin's shadows seemed to come alive. The rocking chair began to sway violently, and she heard faint whispers coming from the walls. The storm outside grew more intense, and Sarah felt as though the cabin was closing in on her. The eerie atmosphere left her feeling as if she were being watched by unseen eyes. Story 7. The Lost Grave. Late one stormy night, a group of friends decided to visit a local cemetery rumored to be haunted. The rain created an eerie atmosphere, with the cemetery's tombstones shrouded in mist and darkness. As they wandered through the cemetery, the rain mixed with fog, making the graves appear ghostly and surreal. They came across a weathered grave that was reputedly cursed. The tombstone was inscribed with cryptic symbols and the name of a man who had supposedly died under tragic circumstances. Suddenly, the rain intensified, and the ground around the grave began to shift. The friends heard strange noises coming from beneath the earth, scratching and thumping sounds that grew louder. The storm's roar drowned out their terrified whispers as they saw the grave's soil moving. In a frenzy, they dug up the grave, only to find an empty coffin and a note warning them to leave. The storm seemed to unleash its fury in response to their intrusion, and as they fled, they felt a sense of impending doom that stayed with them long after the rain subsided. Story 8. The Whispering Woods. On a stormy night, Ella ventured into the woods behind her family's farmhouse, seeking a break from the noise of the storm inside. The rain created a constant, rhythmic patter, and the wind howled through the trees. As Ella walked deeper into the woods, she noticed that the rain had a peculiar quality, as if it were whispering secrets to her. The trees seemed to bend and sway, creating eerie shapes in the dim light. She stumbled upon an old, abandoned house that she had never seen before. Inside the house, the rain was louder, and the atmosphere was thick with an unsettling feeling. Ella found old, faded photographs and strange drawings on the walls, depicting ghostly figures and cryptic messages. The whispers grew louder, and Ella felt a presence following her. The rain's intensity increased, and Ella heard voices calling her name. The house seemed to pulse with an otherworldly energy, and Ella felt as though the woods were closing in on her. As she left, she glanced back and saw shadowy figures moving in the windows. The experience left her with an overwhelming sense of dread. Story 9. The Cursed Doll. In the middle of a fierce storm, Laura was staying at her grandmother's old house when she discovered a dusty attic full of forgotten relics. Among them was a vintage doll with a cracked porcelain face and lifeless eyes. As Laura examined the doll, she noticed that it seemed to move slightly on its own, despite no visible force. The rain pounded against the attic windows, creating an ominous soundtrack to the doll's unsettling presence. Laura decided to investigate the doll's history. She found an old journal detailing the doll's origin. It had been a gift to a little girl who had tragically died under mysterious circumstances. The journal spoke of strange occurrences and eerie events connected to the doll. As Laura read, the rain grew louder, and the doll's eyes seemed to follow her every move. She felt a cold breeze and heard faint whispers that sounded like a child's laughter. The storm's fury mirrored the growing sense of unease as the doll's presence became increasingly sinister. Story 10. The Phantom Train. During a violent thunderstorm, Mark decided to explore an old, abandoned railway station rumored to be haunted. The rain battered the roof, and the occasional flash of lightning illuminated the dilapidated station. As Mark wandered through the station, he noticed an old, rusted train on a sidetrack. The train had been out of service for decades, but it looked strangely pristine amidst the decay. Mark heard the distant sound of a train whistle, despite no trains running for years. The rain intensified, and Mark felt a chilling presence as he approached the train. Inside, he found old passenger seats and luggage, all eerily well preserved. Suddenly, he heard footsteps echoing through the empty train, and the sound of a train engine revving up. Mark saw shadowy figures moving through the train, and the station seemed to come alive with the sounds of an old train journey. The storm outside grew more violent, and Mark felt as if he were trapped in a ghostly reenactment of the past. The experience left him shaken, and he left the station with a sense of foreboding. Story 11. The Haunted Hotel. During a torrential downpour, Rachel checked into a historic hotel known for its haunted reputation. The rain pelted the windows, creating a rhythmic backdrop to the hotel's eerie ambience. Rachel's room was old-fashioned, with antique furnishings and a heavy curtain that blocked out the storm's light. As she settled in, she heard strange noises from the room next door, a door creaking open and footsteps moving across the floor. The rain continued to fall, and Rachel decided to investigate the noises. She discovered that the room next door was locked and had been unused for years. She found an old guest book in the hallway, which detailed unsettling experiences reported by previous guests, including sightings of ghostly figures and unexplained phenomena. As Rachel read the guest book, the sounds grew more intense, and she felt a cold presence in her room. The storm's fury seemed to amplify the supernatural activity, creating a chilling atmosphere that left Rachel feeling uneasy throughout the night. Story 12. The Shadow in the Window. On a stormy night, Michael stayed in a secluded bed and breakfast in the countryside. The rain hammered against the windows, and the wind howled through the trees, creating an unsettling ambience. Michael was drawn to a window in his room that offered a view of the dark, rain-soaked landscape. As he looked out, he saw a shadowy figure moving past the window. The figure appeared to be searching for something, its movements erratic and unnerving. The rain continued to pour, and Michael's curiosity got the better of him. He ventured outside to investigate, but the figure had vanished. He found an old, overgrown path leading into the woods. The path was muddy and treacherous, and the rain made it difficult to see. As Michael followed the path, he heard faint whispers and the sound of footsteps behind him. The storm seemed to grow more intense, and the shadows in the woods seemed to come alive. Michael felt an overwhelming sense of dread and hurried back to the bed and breakfast, but the shadowy figure remained a haunting presence in his mind. Story 13. The Eerie Reflection. During a torrential rainstorm, Claire stayed at an old bed and breakfast with a haunted reputation. The rain created a constant soothing sound, but it did little to dispel the eerie atmosphere. Claire found an antique mirror in her room, its surface dusty and cracked. The mirror seemed to reflect not only her image, but also strange, fleeting shapes that disappeared when she looked directly at them. The rain continued to fall, and the mirror's reflection became increasingly unsettling. As Claire investigated the mirror, she discovered that it had been owned by a previous guest who had disappeared under mysterious circumstances. The rain's rhythm seemed to sync with the mirror's disturbing reflections, creating a surreal and chilling experience. The mirror's surface seemed to ripple, and Claire saw ghostly figures moving behind her. The reflection grew more distorted, and the whispers grew louder. The storm outside seemed to amplify the supernatural activity, leaving Claire with a lingering sense of dread. Story 14. The Abandoned School. On a stormy night, Greg explored an abandoned school known for its haunted reputation. The rain created a constant, rhythmic sound, and the wind howled through the broken windows. As Greg wandered through the school's dark hallways, he discovered old classrooms filled with dusty desks and faded posters. The rain seemed to amplify the creaks and groans of the building, adding to the eerie atmosphere. Greg found an old yearbook in the school's library, filled with photographs of students and teachers. He noticed that several faces were crossed out with dark ink, and there were strange notes written in the margins. The rain's intensity seemed to mirror the growing sense of unease. Suddenly, Greg heard footsteps echoing through the hallways and saw shadowy figures moving in the corners of his vision. The storm outside seemed to intensify the supernatural activity, and Greg felt as though he was being watched by unseen eyes. Story 15. The Cursed Forest. During a violent storm, Lisa and her friends ventured into a forest known for its cursed history. The rain fell in torrents, and the wind howled through the trees, creating a foreboding atmosphere. As they explored the forest, they came across an old, weathered sign warning of the forest's cursed reputation. The rain created a constant, rhythmic sound, and the forest seemed to come alive with strange noises and shadows. The group stumbled upon an old, abandoned cabin deep in the forest. Inside, they found disturbing artifacts and remnants of rituals performed by previous inhabitants. The rain's intensity seemed to amplify the eerie atmosphere, and the group began to feel an overwhelming sense of dread. The forest's shadows seemed to move and shift, and the whispers grew louder. The storm outside intensified, and the group felt as though they were being followed by unseen entities. The experience left them shaken and with a lingering sense of fear. Story 16. The Haunted Mirror. On a stormy night, Jenna discovered an old mirror in the attic of her new home. The rain pounded against the windows, and the wind howled through the house, creating an eerie atmosphere. Jenna noticed that the mirror seemed to reflect strange, shadowy figures that disappeared when she looked directly at them. The rain continued to fall, and the mirror's reflections grew more unsettling with each passing hour. As Jenna investigated the mirror's history, she discovered that it had been owned by a previous resident who had disappeared under mysterious circumstances. The rain's rhythm seemed to sync with the mirror's disturbing reflections, creating a surreal and chilling experience. The mirror's surface seemed to ripple, and Jenna saw ghostly figures moving behind her. The storm outside seemed to amplify the supernatural activity, leaving Jenna with a lingering sense of unease. Story 17. The Creepy Dollhouse. During a torrential downpour, Emma found an old, abandoned dollhouse in the attic of her new home. The rain created a constant, rhythmic sound, and the dollhouse seemed to come alive with eerie energy. As Emma examined the dollhouse, she noticed that its miniature rooms were filled with disturbing details and lifelike dolls that seemed to move on their own. The rain's intensity seemed to mirror the growing sense of unease. Emma discovered an old journal hidden in the dollhouse, detailing strange occurrences and unsettling experiences. The rain grew louder, and the dolls in the dollhouse seemed to take on a life of their own. Emma felt an overwhelming sense of dread and fear as the storm outside intensified. The dollhouse's miniature rooms seemed to shift and change, and the dolls appeared to watch Emma with lifelike eyes. The experience left her with a lingering sense of terror. Story 18. The Ghostly Apparition. On a stormy night, Ryan stayed at a historic inn known for its ghostly apparitions. The rain battered the windows, and the wind howled through the corridors, creating an eerie atmosphere. Ryan heard strange noises coming from the hallway and saw shadowy figures moving past his door. The rain's rhythmic sound seemed to amplify the unsettling experiences. He decided to investigate and discovered old photographs and documents detailing the inn's haunted history. As the rain continued to fall, Ryan saw ghostly apparitions moving through the inn. The figures seemed to be searching for something, and their presence grew more intense with each flash of lightning. The storm outside mirrored the supernatural activity, leaving Ryan with a sense of foreboding. Story 19. The Eerie Music Box. During a fierce storm, Lily discovered an old music box in her grandmother's attic. The rain created a constant, rhythmic sound, and the music box's haunting melody added to the eerie atmosphere. As Lily examined the music box, she noticed that its melody seemed to have a disturbing quality. The rain's intensity seemed to amplify the music box's eerie music, creating a chilling experience. Lily found an old journal detailing the music box's history and its connection to a tragic event. The rain grew louder, and the music box's melody seemed to become more unsettling. Lily felt as though she was being watched, and the storm outside intensified the sense of dread. The experience left her with a lingering sense of unease. Story 20. The Chilling Photograph. On a stormy night, Alex found an old photograph album in the attic of his family's home. The rain pounded against the windows, and the album's contents revealed disturbing images and unsettling stories. As Alex flipped through the album, he noticed that the photographs seemed to come alive with eerie energy. The rain's rhythmic sound seemed to sync with the unsettling images in the album. Alex discovered that the photographs depicted ghostly figures and strange occurrences. The storm outside intensified, and the photographs seemed to take on a life of their own. Alex felt an overwhelming sense of fear and dread as the supernatural activity grew more intense. The experience left him with a lasting sense of unease and terror. Story 21. The Vanishing Village. During a relentless rainstorm, Sophie discovered an old map in her attic that led to a forgotten village. The rain battered against the window panes as she decided to investigate the village described as cursed. Sophie followed the map, navigating through the storm-swept countryside. The rain created a heavy mist that shrouded the village in an eerie fog. As she arrived, the village appeared abandoned, with houses in various stages of decay. The rain's rhythmic pounding was interrupted only by the occasional creak of old wooden structures. Sophie explored the village and found peculiar symbols carved into the buildings and cryptic messages scattered around. The storm outside intensified, and Sophie heard faint, ghostly whispers carried by the wind. Suddenly, she saw shadowy figures moving in the periphery of her vision. The figures seemed to be searching for something or someone. The village felt alive with an unsettling energy, and the rain's relentless assault seemed to echo the ghost's lament. Sophie fled the village, feeling as though it were closing in on her, and the sense of dread lingered long after she returned home. Story 22. The Haunted Carousel. On a stormy evening, Matt visited an old amusement park rumored to be haunted. The rain pounded heavily, creating a constant, rhythmic background as he approached the decrepit carousel. The carousel was frozen in time, its once bright colors faded and peeling. The rain created an eerie rhythm as it hit the metal structures and plastic horses. Matt noticed that the carousel's music box, though broken, emitted a faint, haunting melody that seemed out of place. As Matt explored, he heard strange, disembodied laughter and saw the carousel's horses sway slightly as if moved by invisible hands. The storm outside intensified, and the carousel lights flickered intermittently, casting ghostly shadows. Matt felt an oppressive presence, as though the spirits of the park's past were reliving their final moments. He left, the storm seeming to follow him, and the haunting melody stayed with him long after he was gone. Story 23. The Phantom Fisherman. During a torrential downpour, Emily went to visit an old, abandoned dock near her home. The rain lashed against the wooden planks, creating a rhythmic sound that added to the dock's eerie ambience. As Emily approached the dock, she saw an old, rusted fishing boat bobbing gently in the rain-swollen waters. The boat had been left to rot, and the rain made the scene feel even more desolate. Emily noticed an old fisherman's hat and a tattered fishing net lying abandoned on the dock. The storm raged on, and Emily heard the faint sound of a fishing reel turning and the rustling of nets. A shadowy figure appeared at the edge of the dock, seemingly casting a line into the stormy sea. The figure vanished when she tried to approach, leaving behind a sense of profound loneliness and sadness. The rain's relentless pounding seemed to mourn the fisherman's ghostly presence. Story 24. The Forsaken Library. On a stormy night, Claire visited an old, abandoned library rumored to be haunted. The rain created a constant, soothing backdrop as she explored the dimly lit building. Inside, the library was filled with dust-covered books and cobwebs. Claire noticed that the books were arranged in an unusual order, with some open to pages detailing strange rituals and dark history. The rain's rhythmic sound was punctuated by the occasional creak of the old building. Claire found a large, leather-bound book with pages describing eerie occurrences and supernatural events. As she read, the rain outside intensified, and she began to hear faint whispers and the sound of footsteps echoing through the library. The shadows in the corners seemed to come alive, and Claire felt as though she was being watched by unseen eyes. The experience left her with an unsettling sense of dread. Story 25. The Cursed Painting. During a torrential downpour, Jake found an old painting in the attic of his new house. The rain's rhythmic drumming against the roof added to the painting's eerie atmosphere. The painting depicted a dark, foreboding landscape with shadowy figures lurking in the background. As Jake examined the painting, he noticed that the figures seemed to move and change shape when he looked away. The rain outside created an oppressive atmosphere, and the painting's eerie glow seemed to pulse with a life of its own. Jake found an old letter hidden behind the painting, detailing a curse placed upon it by a disgruntled artist. The rain grew louder, and the figures in the painting appeared to come alive, their eyes following Jake's every move. The unsettling presence of the painting left Jake with a deep sense of fear and foreboding. Story 26. The Haunted Music Hall. On a stormy night, Laura visited an old music hall known for its ghostly performances. The rain's persistent rhythm created an eerie atmosphere as she explored the empty hall. Inside, the music hall was filled with dusty instruments and faded stage curtains. Laura noticed that an old piano, covered in dust, seemed to play a haunting melody on its own. The rain outside intensified, and the music hall's shadows seemed to move and shift in response to the storm. Laura discovered old programs and posters detailing past performances and strange occurrences associated with the hall. The rain's rhythmic sound was punctuated by eerie whispers and the occasional ghostly performance. Laura felt an oppressive presence and left the hall with a lingering sense of unease. Story 27. The Enchanted Forest. During a torrential downpour, Alex explored an old forest known for its magical and mysterious reputation. The rain created a constant, soothing sound as he ventured deeper into the woods. The forest was dense and dark, with the rain creating a misty, ethereal atmosphere. Alex noticed strange, glowing lights flickering between the trees and heard faint, melodious whispers carried by the wind. The rain intensified, and the forest seemed to come alive with mystical energy. Alex stumbled upon an ancient, stone altar covered in moss and strange symbols. The whispers grew louder, and the glowing lights seemed to dance around him. The storm's fury mirrored the forest's enchantment, and Alex felt as though he was part of an otherworldly ritual. The experience left him with a profound sense of wonder and fear. Story 28. The Abandoned Mansion. On a stormy evening, Jessica visited an old mansion known for its haunted past. The rain battered the windows, and the wind howled through the empty halls, creating a foreboding atmosphere. The mansion was filled with antique furniture and dusty portraits. Jessica noticed that the portraits seemed to watch her with lifelike eyes. The rain's rhythmic sound was punctuated by the occasional creak of the old building. Jessica discovered an old diary detailing the mansion's tragic history and strange occurrences experienced by previous occupants. The rain intensified, and the mansion's shadows seemed to come alive with ghostly figures. Jessica felt an overwhelming sense of dread and unease as she explored the mansion, and the storm outside seemed to amplify the supernatural activity. Story 29. The Lost Child's Lullaby. During a fierce storm, Nathan found an old music box in the attic of his family's home. The rain's rhythmic sound created a haunting backdrop as he examined the music box. The music box played a soft, melancholic lullaby that seemed to evoke a sense of sadness. Nathan noticed that the music box had a photograph of a young child hidden inside. The rain's intensity grew, and the lullaby seemed to become more haunting and sorrowful. Nathan discovered that the music box had belonged to a child who had disappeared under mysterious circumstances. The rain seemed to echo the child's cries, and Nathan felt an overwhelming sense of grief and longing. The experience left him with a deep sense of melancholy. Story 30. The Old Cemetery. On a stormy night, Emma visited an old cemetery known for its ghostly legends. The rain created a constant, rhythmic sound as she walked among the graves. The cemetery was overgrown with weeds and covered in mist. Emma noticed that some of the gravestones were weathered and cracked, with strange symbols etched into the stone. The rain's rhythmic sound was interrupted by occasional whispers and ghostly figures appearing in the fog. Emma discovered an old, forgotten grave that had been recently disturbed. The rain intensified, and she felt a chilling presence as she investigated. The cemetery seemed to come alive with supernatural activity, and Emma felt as though she was being watched by unseen spirits. The experience left her with a lingering sense of dread. Story 31. The Forgotten Chapel. During a torrential downpour, Tom explored an old, abandoned chapel on the outskirts of town. The rain's rhythmic sound created a haunting atmosphere as he approached the dilapidated building. Inside the chapel, the air was cold and musty, with broken pews and shattered stained glass windows. Tom noticed that the chapel's altar was covered in strange symbols and religious artifacts. The rain outside created an eerie, rhythmic backdrop to the chapel's desolate interior. Tom discovered an old book detailing the chapel's dark history and the rituals performed by its previous occupants. The rain grew louder, and Tom felt an oppressive presence as he explored. The chapel seemed to come alive with supernatural energy, and Tom left with a profound sense of fear and unease. Story 32. The Haunted Asylum. On a stormy night, Sarah visited an old asylum known for its haunted reputation. The rain battered the windows, and the wind howled through the empty halls, creating an eerie atmosphere. The asylum was filled with abandoned medical equipment and faded, peeling wallpaper. Sarah noticed that the asylum's shadows seemed to move and shift in response to the storm. The rain's rhythmic sound was punctuated by the occasional creak of the old building. Sarah discovered old patient records and strange, unsettling notes left by former occupants. The rain outside intensified, and Sarah felt as though she was being watched by unseen eyes. The asylum's ghostly presence left her with a lingering sense of dread. Story 33. The Eerie Lighthouse. During a torrential downpour, Mark visited an old lighthouse known for its haunted history. The rain created a constant, rhythmic sound as he climbed the spiral staircase to the top. The lighthouse was filled with rusted equipment and broken windows. Mark noticed that the lighthouse's beacon, though not operational, seemed to flicker occasionally. The rain's intensity grew, and the wind howled through the broken windows. Mark discovered old journals detailing the lighthouse keeper's mysterious disappearance and strange occurrences reported by previous visitors. The storm outside intensified, and Mark felt a chilling presence as he explored. The lighthouse seemed to come alive with supernatural activity, and Mark left with a profound sense of fear. Story 34. The Whispering Woods. On a stormy night, Alice ventured into a dense forest known for its eerie whispers and strange occurrences. The rain's rhythmic sound created a haunting backdrop as she walked among the towering trees. The forest was shrouded in mist and darkness, with the rain creating a constant soothing sound. Alice noticed that the trees seemed to whisper and shift in response to the storm. The whispers grew louder, and Alice felt as though the forest was alive with supernatural energy. Alice stumbled upon an old, abandoned cabin deep in the woods. Inside, she found disturbing artifacts and old journals detailing the forest's dark history. The storm's fury mirrored the forest's eerie activity, and Alice left with a lingering sense of dread and fear. Story 35. The Cursed Object. During a fierce storm, Emily discovered an old cursed object in the attic of her family's home. The rain created a constant, rhythmic sound as she examined the object. The object, an ornate box with intricate carvings, seemed to emanate an unsettling energy. Emily noticed that the carvings appeared to shift and change shape as she looked at them. The rain outside intensified, and the box seemed to pulse with a life of its own. Emily found an old letter detailing the object's curse and the strange occurrences experienced by previous owners. The rain's rhythmic sound seemed to echo the box's dark energy, and Emily felt an overwhelming sense of fear and foreboding. The experience left her with a deep sense of dread. Story 36. The Abandoned Hospital. On a stormy night, Laura explored an old, abandoned hospital rumored to be haunted. The rain created a constant, rhythmic sound as she navigated through the desolate halls. The hospital was filled with broken equipment and faded medical charts. Laura noticed that some of the charts had disturbing notes about unexplained phenomena. The rain's steady rhythm was interrupted by eerie creaks and distant, ghostly moans. Laura discovered a patient's room with a bed that appeared recently disturbed. The rain outside intensified, and Laura felt an oppressive presence as she explored the room. The atmosphere seemed to be thick with the sorrow and pain of those who had suffered within the hospital's walls. The experience left her with a profound sense of dread. Story 37. The Old Lighthouse Keeper. During a torrential downpour, Tom investigated the history of an old lighthouse and its long-deceased keeper. The rain's rhythmic sound set the stage for a haunting tale. The lighthouse was abandoned, with its beacon long since extinguished. Tom read about the lighthouse keeper who had vanished mysteriously decades ago. The rain's constant drumming added to the eerie atmosphere as he explored the lighthouse's cold, empty rooms. Tom discovered old logs and personal effects of the lighthouse keeper. The storm intensified, and Tom felt a ghostly presence and heard faint, sorrowful whispers. The atmosphere seemed to come alive with the keeper's lingering spirit, and Tom left with a sense of deep, lingering fear. Story 38. The Haunting of Ravenswood Manor. On a stormy evening, Emma visited Ravenswood Manor, an old estate with a tragic history. The rain battered the manor's windows as she explored its dark, opulent rooms. The manor was filled with antique furniture and portraits of stern-looking ancestors. The rain's rhythmic sound was complemented by the occasional creak of the old building. Emma found a hidden diary detailing a family curse and unexplained disappearances. The storm outside grew fiercer, and Emma felt as though the manor's spirits were watching her. The shadows in the corners seemed to move, and she heard faint cries of anguish. The sense of being observed left Emma with a profound sense of unease. Story 39. The Vanishing Cabin. During a heavy rainstorm, Jack stumbled upon an old, supposedly cursed cabin deep in the woods. The rain's rhythmic patter against the cabin's roof added to the atmosphere of dread. The cabin was in disrepair, with broken windows and a musty interior. Jack noticed that the cabin seemed to change its layout, with rooms appearing and disappearing. The rain outside created an oppressive backdrop as he explored. Jack found old, unsettling documents about the cabin's dark history. The storm intensified, and Jack felt an eerie presence and heard distant, ghostly footsteps. The cabin's unsettling nature left him with a lingering sense of terror. Story 40. The Phantom of the Opera House. On a stormy night, Sarah explored an old opera house with a reputation for being haunted. The rain created a constant, rhythmic sound as she wandered through the grand, empty halls. The opera house was filled with dusty costumes and abandoned set pieces. Sarah noticed that the stage seemed to come alive with eerie, ghostly light. The rain's rhythmic sound was interrupted by occasional whispers and distant, haunting melodies. Sarah discovered old playbills and documents about the opera house's tragic past. The storm outside grew louder, and Sarah felt as though she was being watched by unseen eyes. The opera house's ghostly ambience left her with a profound sense of dread. Story 41. The Haunted Doll. During a torrential downpour, Maya found an old, creepy doll in the attic of her family's home. The rain's rhythmic sound created a chilling atmosphere as she examined the doll. The doll was antique, with glassy eyes and a sinister smile. Maya noticed that the doll seemed to move on its own, its eyes following her every move. The rain's constant patter was punctuated by the occasional creak of the old house. Maya discovered old letters detailing the doll's unsettling history and its previous owner's eerie experiences. The storm outside intensified, and Maya felt a chilling presence as the doll seemed to come alive. The experience left her with a deep sense of fear and unease. Story 42. The Ghostly Train. On a stormy night, Alex visited an old abandoned railway station rumored to be haunted by the ghosts of past passengers. The rain created a constant, rhythmic sound as he explored the station. The station was overgrown with weeds and filled with rusted train cars. Alex noticed that the trains seemed to emit ghostly, mournful whistles. The rain's rhythmic sound was interrupted by occasional echoes of distant, phantom footsteps. Alex found old tickets and documents about mysterious disappearances at the station. The storm outside grew fiercer, and Alex felt an eerie presence and heard faint, ghostly voices. The abandoned station's unsettling atmosphere left him with a lingering sense of dread. Story 43. The Cursed Mansion. During a torrential downpour, Laura visited a mansion known for its dark, cursed history. The rain's rhythmic sound added to the mansion's eerie atmosphere. The mansion was filled with antique furniture and faded wallpaper. Laura noticed that the mansion's shadows seemed to move and shift in response to the storm. The rain outside created a constant, oppressive backdrop. Laura discovered old journals detailing the mansion's curse and strange occurrences experienced by previous occupants. The storm's fury seemed to echo the mansion's supernatural activity, and Laura felt as though she was being watched by unseen spirits. The experience left her with a profound sense of fear. Story 44. The Spectral Shipwreck. On a stormy night, Nate explored the site of an old shipwreck known for its ghostly legends. The rain's rhythmic sound created a haunting backdrop as he approached the wreck. The shipwreck was partially submerged and surrounded by treacherous rocks. Nate noticed that the wreck seemed to emit an eerie, ghostly glow. The rain's constant patter was interrupted by the occasional sound of creaking wood and ghostly whispers. Nate discovered old logs and documents about the ship's tragic sinking and the ghostly figures reported by previous visitors. The storm outside intensified, and Nate felt a chilling presence as the wreck seemed to come alive with supernatural energy. The experience left him with a deep sense of unease. Story 45. The Forgotten Asylum. During a torrential downpour, Emma explored an old asylum with a dark, forgotten history. The rain created a constant, rhythmic sound as she navigated through the derelict building. The asylum was filled with abandoned rooms and broken equipment. Emma noticed that the asylum's shadows seemed to shift and move in response to the storm. The rain's rhythmic sound was punctuated by occasional, unsettling creaks and distant, ghostly cries. Emma discovered old medical records and documents about the asylum's dark past and unexplained phenomena. The storm outside grew louder, and Emma felt as though she was being watched by unseen eyes. The asylum's eerie atmosphere left her with a lingering sense of dread. Story 46. The Forgotten Carnival. On a stormy night, Jack ventured to an old, abandoned carnival known for its eerie legends. The rain created a constant, rhythmic sound as he walked among the dilapidated rides. The carnival was overgrown with weeds, and rusted rides creaked ominously. Jack noticed that the carnival's faded attractions seemed to come alive in the storm's flickering light. The rain's constant patter was accompanied by unsettling, distant laughter and whispers. Jack discovered old tickets and carnival memorabilia detailing strange occurrences and ghostly sightings. The storm outside intensified, and Jack felt a chilling presence as the carnival's sinister history seemed to resurface. The experience left him with a deep sense of fear and unease. Story 47. The Abandoned Mine. During a torrential downpour, Emma explored an old mine with a dark and tragic history. The rain's rhythmic sound created a chilling atmosphere as she descended into the mine's depths. The mine was filled with old equipment and narrow tunnels. Emma noticed that the air seemed to grow colder and the shadows deeper as the storm raged outside. The rain's steady rhythm was interrupted by eerie echoes and distant, ghostly murmurs. Emma discovered old mining logs and reports of accidents and disappearances. The storm's fury mirrored the mine's unsettling atmosphere, and Emma felt a ghostly presence as she navigated the dark tunnels. The experience left her with a profound sense of dread. Story 48. The Haunted Lighthouse. On a stormy evening, Michael visited an old lighthouse with a reputation for being haunted. The rain created a constant, rhythmic sound as he climbed the spiral staircase to the top. The lighthouse was filled with rusted equipment and broken windows. Michael noticed that the lighthouse's beacon, though not operational, seemed to flicker occasionally. The rain's intensity grew, and Michael felt as though the lighthouse was alive with supernatural energy. Michael discovered old logs and personal effects of the previous lighthouse keeper who had vanished mysteriously. The storm outside grew louder, and Michael felt an oppressive presence as he explored the lighthouse. The experience left him with a deep sense of unease. Story 49. The Cursed Cabin. During a heavy rainstorm, Sarah found an old, seemingly cursed cabin in the woods. The rain's rhythmic sound set a haunting backdrop as she examined the cabin's interior. The cabin was dilapidated with broken furniture and a musty smell. Sarah noticed that the cabin's walls seemed to whisper and shift in the storm's flickering light. The rain's constant patter was punctuated by eerie creaks and unsettling noises. Sarah discovered old journals and artifacts detailing the cabin's dark history and the strange occurrences experienced by previous occupants. The storm outside intensified, and Sarah felt a ghostly presence as the cabin seemed to come alive with supernatural energy. The experience left her with a profound sense of fear. Story 50. The Ghostly Hotel. On a stormy night, Jason stayed at an old, abandoned hotel known for its ghostly legends. The rain created a constant, rhythmic sound as he explored the hotel's decaying halls. The hotel was filled with dusty furniture and faded wallpaper. Jason noticed that the hotel's shadows seemed to move and shift in response to the storm. The rain's rhythmic sound was interrupted by distant, ghostly whispers and eerie echoes. Jason discovered old guest records and personal effects of previous occupants who had vanished mysteriously. The storm outside grew louder, and Jason felt an oppressive presence as the hotel's ghostly atmosphere seemed to come alive. The experience left him with a deep sense of unease. Story 51. The Haunted Forest. During a torrential downpour, Olivia ventured into a dense forest known for its eerie legends. The rain's rhythmic sound created a chilling atmosphere as she navigated through the misty woods. The forest was shrouded in darkness, with twisted trees and strange, whispering winds. Olivia noticed that the trees seemed to move and whisper in response to the storm. The rain's constant patter was punctuated by eerie sounds and ghostly whispers. Olivia discovered old, abandoned structures and artifacts related to the forest's dark history. The storm outside intensified, and Olivia felt a ghostly presence as the forest's supernatural energy seemed to come alive. The experience left her with a profound sense of dread. Story 52. The Cursed Dollhouse. On a stormy night, Megan found an old, antique dollhouse in her attic. The rain's rhythmic sound created a chilling backdrop as she examined the intricately crafted dollhouse. The dollhouse was detailed, with miniature furniture and lifelike dolls. Megan noticed that the dolls seemed to move slightly when she wasn't looking. The rain's constant patter was interrupted by eerie creaks and unsettling noises. Megan discovered old letters and documents detailing the dollhouse's dark history and the strange occurrences experienced by previous owners. The storm outside grew fiercer, and Megan felt a chilling presence as the dollhouse seemed to come alive with supernatural energy. The experience left her with a deep sense of fear. Story 53. The Abandoned Asylum. During a torrential downpour, Brian explored an old asylum known for its dark history. The rain's rhythmic sound set a haunting atmosphere as he navigated through the abandoned building. The asylum was filled with broken equipment and abandoned rooms. Brian noticed that the asylum's shadows seemed to shift and move in response to the storm. The rain's constant patter was punctuated by eerie sounds and ghostly whispers. Brian discovered old patient records and documents detailing the asylum's tragic past. The storm outside grew louder, and Brian felt an oppressive presence as the asylum's ghostly atmosphere seemed to come alive. The experience left him with a profound sense of dread. Story 54. The Ghostly Train Station. On a stormy night, Linda visited an old, abandoned train station with a reputation for being haunted. The rain created a constant, rhythmic sound as she explored the station's desolate platforms. The train station was filled with rusted equipment and overgrown weeds. Linda noticed that the station's platforms seemed to emit an eerie, ghostly glow. The rain's constant patter was interrupted by distant, ghostly whistles and murmurs. Linda discovered old train schedules and documents about mysterious disappearances at the station. The storm outside grew fiercer, and Linda felt a chilling presence as the station's supernatural energy seemed to come alive. The experience left her with a deep sense of unease. Story 55. The Haunting of Blackwood Manor. During a torrential downpour, Mark visited Blackwood Manor, an old estate with a tragic history. The rain's rhythmic sound created a chilling atmosphere as he explored the manor's dark, opulent rooms. The manor was filled with antique furniture and faded portraits. Mark noticed that the shadows seemed to move and shift in response to the storm. The rain's constant patter was punctuated by eerie creaks and ghostly whispers. Mark discovered old journals and letters detailing the manor's dark past and unexplained phenomena. The storm outside grew louder, and Mark felt as though the manor's spirits were watching him. The experience left him with a profound sense of dread and fear. Story 56. The Abandoned Hotel. On a stormy night, Laura explored an old, abandoned hotel with a dark reputation. The rain created a constant, rhythmic sound as she walked through the hotel's decaying hallways. The hotel was filled with dusty furniture and broken chandeliers. Laura noticed that the walls seemed to shift and breathe in response to the storm. The rain's constant patter was interrupted by eerie echoes and ghostly whispers. Laura discovered old guest records and personal belongings of former occupants. The storm outside grew louder, and Laura felt an oppressive presence as the hotel's ghostly ambience seemed to come alive. The experience left her with a profound sense of unease. Story 57. The Vanishing Village. During a torrential downpour, Sam stumbled upon an old, seemingly abandoned village deep in the countryside. The rain's rhythmic sound added to the eerie atmosphere as he wandered through the empty streets. The village was overgrown with weeds, and the buildings were in various states of disrepair. Sam noticed that the village seemed to shift and change with the storm's movements. The rain's constant patter was punctuated by distant, ghostly murmurs and unsettling noises. Sam discovered old documents and artifacts detailing the village's mysterious disappearance and dark history. The storm outside intensified, and Sam felt a chilling presence as the village's supernatural energy seemed to come alive. The experience left him with a deep sense of fear. Story 58. The Cursed Theatre. On a stormy evening, Emma visited an old theatre known for its haunted reputation. The rain created a constant, rhythmic sound as she explored the theatre's grand, yet decaying spaces. The theatre was filled with dusty props and faded playbills. Emma noticed that the stage seemed to come alive with eerie, ghostly light. The rain's constant patter was interrupted by distant, haunting melodies and ghostly whispers. Emma discovered old scripts and letters detailing the theatre's tragic past and the supernatural events reported by previous visitors. The storm outside grew fiercer, and Emma felt an oppressive presence as the theatre's ghostly atmosphere seemed to come alive. The experience left her with a profound sense of dread. Story 59. The Haunted Cabin. During a heavy rainstorm, Mike found an old, abandoned cabin in the woods. The rain's rhythmic sound created a chilling atmosphere as he examined the cabin's interior. The cabin was dilapidated, with broken furniture and a musty smell. Mike noticed that the cabin's shadows seemed to move and shift in response to the storm. The rain's constant patter was punctuated by eerie creaks and unsettling noises. Mike discovered old journals and personal effects detailing the cabin's dark history and the strange occurrences experienced by previous occupants. The storm outside intensified, and Mike felt a ghostly presence as the cabin seemed to come alive with supernatural energy. The experience left him with a deep sense of fear. Story 60. The Ghostly Lighthouse Keeper. On a stormy night, Lisa visited an old lighthouse known for its haunted history. The rain created a constant, rhythmic sound as she climbed the lighthouse's spiral staircase. The lighthouse was filled with rusted equipment and broken windows. Lisa noticed that the beacon, though not operational, seemed to flicker occasionally. The rain's intensity grew, and Lisa felt as though the lighthouse was alive with supernatural energy. Lisa discovered old logs and personal belongings of the lighthouse keeper who had vanished mysteriously. The storm outside grew louder, and Lisa felt an oppressive presence as the lighthouse's ghostly atmosphere seemed to come alive. The experience left her with a profound sense of dread. Story 61. The Haunting of Milltown. During a torrential downpour, Ben explored an old, abandoned mill town with a dark reputation. The rain's rhythmic sound added to the eerie atmosphere as he wandered through the empty streets and buildings. The town was overgrown with vegetation, and the buildings were in disrepair. Ben noticed that the town seemed to shift and change with the storm's movements. The rain's constant patter was punctuated by distant, ghostly murmurs and unsettling noises. Ben discovered old documents and artifacts detailing the town's tragic history and unexplained phenomena. The storm outside intensified, and Ben felt a chilling presence as the town's supernatural energy seemed to come alive. The experience left him with a deep sense of fear. Story 62. The Phantom Farmhouse. On a stormy night, Julia visited an old farmhouse known for its haunted reputation. The rain created a constant, rhythmic sound as she explored the farmhouse's dark, empty rooms. The farmhouse was filled with dusty furniture and faded photographs. Julia noticed that the shadows in the rooms seemed to move and shift in response to the storm. The rain's constant patter was interrupted by eerie creaks and ghostly whispers. Julia discovered old family records and personal belongings detailing the farmhouse's dark past and the supernatural events reported by previous occupants. The storm outside grew fiercer, and Julia felt an oppressive presence as the farmhouse's ghostly atmosphere seemed to come alive. The experience left her with a profound sense of dread. Story 63. The Cursed Mansion. During a torrential downpour, Kevin explored an old mansion with a reputation for being cursed. The rain's rhythmic sound created a chilling atmosphere as he navigated through the mansion's opulent yet decaying rooms. The mansion was filled with antique furniture and faded wallpaper. Kevin noticed that the shadows in the rooms seemed to move and shift in response to the storm. The rain's constant patter was punctuated by eerie sounds and ghostly whispers. Kevin discovered old journals and documents detailing the mansion's dark history and the strange occurrences experienced by previous occupants. The storm outside intensified, and Kevin felt a chilling presence as the mansion's supernatural energy seemed to come alive. The experience left him with a deep sense of fear. Story 64. The Haunted Schoolhouse. On a stormy evening, Anna visited an old, abandoned schoolhouse known for its ghostly legends. The rain created a constant, rhythmic sound as she explored the school's dark, empty classrooms. The schoolhouse was filled with dusty desks and faded chalkboards. Anna noticed that the shadows in the classrooms seemed to move and shift in response to the storm. The rain's constant patter was interrupted by eerie creaks and ghostly whispers. Anna discovered old school records and personal belongings of former students and teachers. The storm outside grew louder, and Anna felt an oppressive presence as the schoolhouse's ghostly atmosphere seemed to come alive. The experience left her with a profound sense of dread.